Why is the book of Enoch called the ancient prophecy of the apocalypse? 1. The mysterious origins of the book of Enoch. Of all the sacred relics scattered across the broken landscapes of human memory, few are as haunting, few are as stubbornly alive as the book of Enoch. There are books that history remembers. There are books that history fears. Enoch's ancient scroll belongs firmly to the latter. It is not merely a relic of ancient thought. It is a cry from a vanished world, a world that once trembled at the footsteps of the divine and the monstrous alike, a world more intimate with its own terrors and its own corruption. It is precisely because of this brutal honesty that the book of Enoch was banished into shadow. Its origins stretch back into the trembling heart of early civilization, likely composed between the 3rd and 1st centuries BCE within the rich, restless soil of ancient Judaism. It was a time when prophecy burned like wildfire across the mountains of Judea, a time when the veil between heaven and earth was thought dangerously thin, a time before men dared to imagine they could tame the heavens by theology or politics. The book bears the name of Enoch, the mysterious figure briefly mentioned in Genesis, the 7th from Adam, a man who walked with God, and who, as the ancient text whispers with chilling simplicity, was not, for God took him. Genesis 5:24. Yet the question presses upon us, what did Enoch see during those otherworldly walks with the Almighty? What visions were seared into his mind? Visions so staggering, so destabilizing, that they would one day be buried beneath the debris of crumbling empires. For the earliest Jewish communities, the book of Enoch was not heresy, it was revelation. It stood shoulder to shoulder with the words of Isaiah and Moses, bearing witness to a reality that most men had already begun to forget. The heavens were not silent, and the earth was not safe. In Enoch's telling, the skies above were crowded not only with the hosts of holy angels, but also with the ranks of the fallen, watchers who crossed forbidden lines, corrupted mankind, and unleashed chaos upon the world below. Early Christians, too, recognized the eerie resonance of Enoch's voice. In the Epistle of Jude, the writer quotes directly from Enoch's prophecy, evoking the terrible image of the Lord returning with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment on all. Jude 1:14-15. Peter's letters echo the warnings of chained angels who await their final damnation. 2 Peter 4. Even the book of Revelation, with its visions of cosmic battles, monstrous beings, and cataclysmic judgments, feels like the great-grandchild of Enoch's terrifying imagination. For those first generations after Christ, Enoch's visions were not curiosities to be debated. They were maps for the perilous road ahead. Yet something shifted. Somewhere in the long centuries between the fervent expectation of early believers and the cold formalities of empire, the book of Enoch was cast aside, banned, buried. Declared non-canonical by men who claimed to speak for heaven even as they served the interests of earthly thrones. The councils convened, the creeds were hammered into place, and a new version of Christianity emerged, one with fewer terrors, fewer demands, fewer disruptive visions of cosmic rebellion. Rome was rising, and with it came an empire that could tolerate many gods, many rituals, and many compromises, but not a sacred text that spoke so unflinchingly of corruption in the highest places among angels and kings alike. Enoch's vision was too raw for an empire that preferred its religion housed in marble halls, gilded with gold and softened by incense. His portrait of divine judgment was too fierce for an age that had made its peace with power. His fearless proclamation that no throne, no temple, no ruler could escape the justice of the Almighty was simply too dangerous for a world built on delicate negotiations between church and state. And so Enoch was silenced. But why? Why did the powerful tremble before a book written in the shadows of antiquity? Was it Enoch's vivid account of the angelic rebellion? A rebellion that revealed even the mightiest of beings could fall from grace, dragging all who aligned themselves with them into ruin? Was it his thunderous prophecy of an impending apocalypse, a reckoning in which priest and king alike would be dragged before the judgment seat of God? Or was it something deeper still, something more unsettling, that Enoch refused to dress truth in the robes of political expediency, that he dared to speak of a cosmos where no earthly power however grand, could claim exemption from divine judgment. Today, in the twilight of our own civilization, the Book of Enoch stirs once more. It rises from the tombs of forgetfulness like a revenant, bearing with it the chill of ancient winds and the fierce voice of a prophet who would not be silenced. As modern scholars, theologians, and seekers dust off its worn pages, they hear again the cry of a world not yet tamed by modernity, a world where the heavens still roared and the earth still wept. The Book of Enoch does not flatter human pride. It offers no cheap grace, no easy comfort. It calls us to remember we inhabit a cosmos at war. Forces more ancient and more terrifying than our small empires can comprehend shape our destiny. And judgment is not a metaphor, but an appointment. In a world once again trembling on the edge of the abyss, the forgotten voice of Enoch may yet prove to be the voice we most desperately need to hear. 2. The Book of Enoch's chilling vision of the end times. If the Book of Revelation is a storm, then the Book of Enoch is the thunder that shatters the air before the first raindrop falls, a raw, primordial force that cracks open the sky and exposes the dreadful abyss beyond human understanding. To open the Book of Enoch is not to sit calmly and study. It is to be swept into a raging, cosmic whirlwind, to fall headlong into a vision of the world poised on the edge of annihilation. In Enoch's revelations, the apocalypse is no distant abstraction. It is a living, breathing terror that stalks the earth, a doom as real as blood and stone. Enoch describes a horror rooted not merely in human sin, but in a cosmic rebellion, the revolt of the Watchers, appointed angels who abandoned their heavenly stations, seduced by the beauty of mortal women and the intoxication of rebellion itself. These fallen ones, lustful and lawless, brought with them forbidden knowledge, warfare, sorcery, vanity, and the seductions of pride and power. They bestowed these dark gifts upon mankind like poisoned fruit. From their unholy unions with human women were born the Nephilim, monstrous beings of staggering appetite and terrifying strength, whose very existence cursed the earth. They devoured not only the abundance of the land, but also the blood of humanity itself, plunging creation into a nightmare from which it could not awaken. It is against this backdrop of heaven's betrayal and earth's defilement that Enoch is snatched up into the heavens, not to gaze serenely at choirs of angels, but to stand, wide-eyed and trembling, before the furious court of the Most High. Here there is no softness, no indulgent forgiveness for those who trampled the sacred order. In the Book of Enoch, the Almighty is no passive observer. He is a righteous judge, his patience worn thin by millennia of injustice and corruption. Judgment is swift, it is final, it is horrifying in its completeness. The Watchers are condemned, shackled with chains of unbreakable darkness, and cast into fiery abysses where they will languish until the final day. Their monstrous offspring, the Nephilim, are torn apart by cosmic forces, earthquakes, celestial fires, elemental wrath, until not even the memory of their blasphemous existence will remain. Yet divine justice does not stop at the destruction of the immediate corruptors. It demands a deeper cleansing. Thus Enoch prophesies the coming of a flood, vast, merciless, and absolute, that will sweep over the whole earth, washing away the stain of corruption in a deluge of sorrow and death. The flood, however, is but a prelude. Beyond its waters lies an even greater apocalypse, the final judgment. In this ultimate reckoning, no king, no warrior, no priestly deceiver will escape unscathed. The mighty of the earth, those who built their thrones atop oppression and fed their bellies on injustice, will be toppled, their crowns ground into dust beneath the relentless march of divine justice. The righteous, the meek, the faithful shall inherit an eternal kingdom. Their tears will be wiped away, their broken bodies made whole. The wicked will vanish like mist before the rising sun, dissolved utterly, remembered only by the trembling echoes of their own prideful screams. Enoch's apocalypse allows no ambiguity. There are no clever loopholes, no negotiated salvations for those who played at religion without bending the knee in true repentance. No refuge exists for the half-hearted. No amnesty will be granted to the wicked clothed in the robes of piety. There is only a God whose patience, infinite though it once seemed, has a limit. A God whose justice descends like a consuming fire, unrelenting and absolute. When placed beside the book of Revelation, the parallels are staggering. And yet, in many ways, Enoch's visions are even more direct, more brutal, more cosmically expansive. John's revelation speaks in symbols, seals, trumpets, bowls of wrath, veiled imagery that invites interpretation and debate. Enoch offers no such veil. He names the rebel angels: Azazel, the corrupter of men; Semyaza, the leader of the fallen host. He catalogs their crimes: the forging of weapons, the revelation of sorcery, the defilement of purity. He outlines their punishments with ghastly precision, and he does not flinch from the horror of their fates. Enoch even charts the cosmos itself, mapping realms of light and darkness, places of reward and regions of unspeakable torment. He does not merely prophesy, he weeps for the devastation he foresees, for the generations that will perish before the cleansing is complete. Yet even in his sorrow there is rejoicing, rejoicing that righteousness will at last be established upon the earth, and that the long agony of creation will be healed. It is a vision that terrifies, and perhaps it is precisely this terror that led to the burial of the book of Enoch, hidden from the trembling hands of men who preferred a tamer faith, a faith that could coexist with empire, with wealth, and with compromise. Enoch leaves no stone unturned. He offers no flattery to the kings and priests of the earth. He promises no sanctuary to those who exploit their fellow men while muttering empty prayers. His apocalypse is not a secret known only to the initiated. It is a thunderous, all-encompassing judgment that will sweep every soul from the highest throne to the lowest hovel into its relentless current. In Enoch's vision, there are no safe harbors, no privileged classes, no second chances bought with silver and gold. There is only the stark, final choice: rebellion or righteousness, corruption or covenant. And the day of reckoning, Enoch cries, will not come because men are ready for it, but because the patience of God has ended, and the earth itself groans for its liberation. Such is the chilling vision of the book of Enoch, a vision not intended to soothe the proud, but to awaken the humble, to remind the trembling world now as then that the apocalypse is not a fable, but a fire already kindling at the edges of the sky. 3. Why modern scholars and believers are rediscovering Enoch's warnings. In our age, when the fabric of the world seems to fray with every passing hour, when wars and rumors of wars thunder across the airwaves, when floods swallow cities and wildfires devour forests, an ancient voice rises from the dust, and the world, weary and trembling, is beginning to listen. The voice is Enoch's, and it cuts through the clamor of our collapsing civilization like a blade of fire. Across universities and seminaries, from the classrooms of skeptical scholars to the prayer rooms of the desperate faithful, the Book of Enoch is making a thunderous return. No longer is it dismissed as a mere relic of superstition, an oddity of ancient myth. No longer can it be comfortably confined to the footnotes of religious history. Why? Because its warnings ring truer now than ever before. Too true, too vivid, too haunting to be ignored. Where Enoch spoke of fallen angels teaching mankind the arts of violence and bloodshed, we now behold weapons of mass destruction, crafted with godlike precision, technologies of death that could extinguish millions in an instant. Where Enoch warned of vanity and corruption spreading like a disease, we see a world obsessed with hollow pleasures, a society addicted to the worship of the self, where the image has triumphed over the soul. Where Enoch mourned a creation groaning beneath the weight of sin, we feel the earth itself, the surging storms, the burning forests, the desolate droughts, crying out like a wounded beast beneath the boots of a fallen humanity. The mirror Enoch holds up to us reflects not a distant past, but our present moment in all its staggering decay. It is no longer possible to dismiss Enoch's visions as archaic fantasy. His words cut too sharply. His descriptions align too closely with the realities that even hardened skeptics struggle to deny. And so scholars debate with increasing urgency. Was the Book of Enoch suppressed not because it was foolish, but because it was too dangerous? Was it hidden away to protect fragile empires whose legitimacy could not withstand a text that exposed the corruption of heavenly and earthly powers alike? Was it declared heretical because it revealed a God too fierce, too uncompromising, too uncontainable for the neat formulas of councils and creeds? These questions swirl like a gathering storm, unsettling the comfortable certainties of theologians and historians alike. For Enoch's God is not the tamed deity of imperial religion, a God draped in gold and enthroned behind marble walls. He is a whirlwind of justice, a consuming fire before whom even the angels tremble. He is not a God to be bribed with offerings or manipulated with rituals. He is the judge of all, and his patience, Enoch insists, is not infinite. Among the faithful, especially among the marginalized, the broken, the oppressed, the rediscovery of Enoch has been nothing short of a spiritual earthquake. For those whom the empires of this world have crushed and forgotten, the Book of Enoch is not merely a book. It is a weapon of hope. It is a testimony that the God of justice still sees the wounds of the earth, still hears the blood crying out from the ground, still prepares to act with a fury no tyrant will escape. In the ancient fire of Enoch's visions, a new generation finds not only a warning, but a call to endure, a reminder that evil, no matter how vast or entrenched, has an expiration date. In Enoch's apocalypse, injustice, no matter how mighty, is uprooted. The fallen powers, human and angelic alike, are brought low before the throne of the Ancient of Days. In the darkest corridors of a collapsing world, Enoch's voice echoes like a trumpet, calling the faithful to resist, to endure, to lift their eyes toward the horizon where judgment comes not as terror for the righteous, but as deliverance for the weary. Thus, the return of Enoch is not merely an academic curiosity, it is a sign of the times. It is a sign that the myths of invincible empires are collapsing, that the lies of a domesticated, powerless God are being cast down, that the ancient promises of justice, long mocked and forgotten, are stirring to life once more. The questions that Enoch forces us to confront are not puzzles to be solved in ivory towers. They are the burning questions of our age. Will we repent while there is still time? Will we prepare our souls for a reckoning that no wealth, no power, no technology can avert? Will we endure the tribulation Enoch foresaw, not with despair, but with the fierce hope of those who know that beyond the fire, a new creation awaits? In the Book of Enoch, the ancient prophet offers no easy answers, no soothing platitudes. He offers only the searing truth, the terrifying vision of a world that must be broken before it can be healed. And for a generation standing on the trembling threshold of its own apocalypse, that truth may yet prove to be the only thing that can save it. Fourth, is the Book of Enoch the missing link to understanding the apocalypse? The apocalypse is no longer a distant echo confined to dusty prophecy. It is the trembling reality beneath our feet, the gathering darkness on the horizon, the slow, grinding collapse of a world that can no longer sustain its illusions. It is not coming as a metaphor, nor as a literary device meant to inspire art or sermons. It is coming as a cataclysm, a tearing away of the veil, a judgment so profound that all the wars and disasters of human history will seem mere preludes, faint whispers before the storm breaks in its full fury. And if this is true, if the end prophesied by John in Revelation, by Daniel in Babylon, and by Isaiah weeping in Jerusalem is truly at hand, then the Book of Enoch may well be the missing link that unlocks it all. In the battered, half-buried pages of Enoch's visions, mysteries that have long perplexed scholars and prophets alike suddenly find their terrifying context. The origins of demonic forces, the spiritual rot festering behind every throne of tyranny, every altar of falsehood, are laid bare. The cryptic days of Noah, which Jesus warned would return at the end of days, no longer appear vague or allegorical. They become horrifyingly vivid, an age of genetic corruption, spiritual rebellion, and human violence without restraint. The relentless decay of the world, its moral implosion, its environmental collapse, its spiritual deadness, is no longer an inexplicable tragedy, but the inevitable consequence of a cosmic rebellion that began before humanity could even name its gods. The book of Enoch reveals that the apocalypse is not merely about human sin, it is about a deeper infection, a corruption at the very roots of creation. It is about the Watchers, those angelic beings who abandon their posts, seduced by flesh and pride, and about the monstrous consequences of their betrayal. It is about the invisible war raging across the heavens and the earth, unnoticed by a humanity lulled into spiritual slumber. Thus, understanding Enoch is not optional, it is essential. Without Enoch, the horrors that fill our headlines, the endless wars, the collapsing economies, the famines, the diseases, the hollowing out of human meaning, seem like random, disconnected tragedies. But with Enoch, they are revealed for what they truly are: signs, markers, trumpets sounding the approach of an ancient judgment. They are the birth pangs of a new world struggling to be born through fire and sorrow. For centuries, the book of Enoch lay buried, suppressed, forgotten like a weapon forged for a final battle not yet come. Yet now, in an age of desperation, when even the wise seem bewildered and the strong falter, it finds its way back into the hands of the brokenhearted, the vigilant, the watchful few who refuse to sleep while the world burns. It rises from the tomb of forgotten texts not as a relic of curiosity, but as a living voice, a cry that reverberates through the ruins of empire and the ruins of the human soul alike. And so the question thunders to us, heavier than stone and sharper than flame. Will we heed the voice of the ancient prophet? Will we stand with the righteous, enduring through suffering, awaiting not political salvation or technological utopia, but the true King, the Ancient of Days who comes to judge the living and the dead? Or will we fall as the Watchers fell, seduced by vanities that cannot save, wealth, power, distraction, until we are swallowed whole by the darkness we chose? The choice is no longer theoretical. It is no longer a matter for distant generations. The apocalypse is not approaching, it has already begun. The wheels have turned, the seals have been broken, the shadows stretch long across the earth. The book of Enoch stands before us, not as a quaint artifact of ancient superstition, but as a trumpet blast across the ages, a voice that shakes the stars and refuses to be silenced. It warns us that the same God who judged the Watchers will judge again, that his justice will not be postponed by human schemes nor silenced by political decrees. It promises that the righteous, though crushed, mocked, and despised in this age, will be vindicated with a vindication so complete that even the heavens will rejoice. And it declares with terrifying certainty that no power, no empire, no corporation, no deceit, no throne of lies will escape the fire. In the end, the book of Enoch is not merely ancient literature. It is a mirror held up to our age, a sword flashing in the twilight, a voice demanding reckoning. To ignore it now would not merely be foolish, it would be fatal.